Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wench Bench, where friends sit and talk about fabulous fictional females and how their stories have influenced us throughout our lives. My name is Alison.
And my name is Fonda.
And today, Fonda is going to be talking about Rogue from Marvel Comics.
To preface, I'm mainly going to actually be talking about her from like the TV series and the movies.
Ooh, very exciting.
Because as much as I would love to say I've read every single comic with Rogue in it and featuring her ever, I haven't. And I will explain why, because there's a complex history with Rogue and her Marvel comic publications.
Oh, very much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. I would love to start, if you don't mind, Alison, with just like a quick history of her publication.
Nice.
Of Rogue as a character in the comics.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Rogue was first slated to appear in the Miss Marvel issue number 25, which came out in 1979.
Okay.
But the book's abrupt cancellation left her original introduction story unpublished for over a decade.
Oh, wow.
So she was featured after that in various other things. But, like, if you wanted to figure out her original introduction, it wasn't published for, like, a long period of time until it was printed in Marvel Superheroes issue number 11 in 1992. So she was supposed to have her thing in 1979, didn't until 1992. Long time.
It's a bit of time.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah. Her first published appearance was in Avengers Annual issue number 10, which came out in 1981. So that's when, like, people saw her character design and she was featured and stuff. But at that time in 1981, no one knew necessarily like, oh, hey, there's this character, but they couldn't find anything about her because the original Miss Marvel issue never came out. She made her first X-book appearance in the Uncanny X-Men issue 158 in 1982, and she joined the X-Men in the Uncanny X-Men issue number 171 in 1983. So that's just like a quick little history of her weird publication history to start with. Now, to kind of like go forth with some more information that happened in her publication history, Rogue's real name and early history were not revealed until more than 20 years after her introduction.
Wow.
I know, that's a long time
Okay.
to go with using a character that you only know is Rogue, and you have like no history about what she was like or what she's actually called. And it wasn't until the backstory provided by Robert Rohde in the ongoing Rogue series, which began in September 2004, that her background was hinted at.
Wow.
I know. This resulted in Rohde's version of... I know, it's lovely knowing that one of my favorite characters has
Just no history.
had no history for so long. But because of this, it resulted in Rohde's version of Rogue's origins inadvertently conflicting with earlier information that they never fucking published.
Awesome.
I know. So in X-Men Unlimited number 4, Scott Lobdell indicates that Rogue ran away from her father after her mutant powers manifested. However, in the Uncanny X-Men issue number 182, Rogue reflects that she never knew her father because he had left before she was born. And,
Cool.
And obviously several other issues pop up because of that, which is just like, I think, a time and true tale of like, you need to get your shit together when it comes to making characters, because if one person never published information, how is the other person that made her and gave a character a backstory like supposed to know that what they told their audience in a comic book volume conflicts with what you wrote down but never actually published for an audience to know?
Yeah, because you'd think you'd want to give them that information.
Right? I know. I find the comic book industry weird now, but weirder back then. In a way.
Yeah.
I feel like from what I understand, it sounds like there's been a lot of history with many comics and many comic book characters where it's like one author or writer will do something without really knowing or haven't been given any information of what came out prior or what wasn't told. So, like, I don't know. It's like if I was to write, like, a George R.R. Martin book and I only had the names of things. Like...
It's like, this and this. I guess this makes sense.
Yeah, I know. It's dumb. But Rogue is, like many of the X-Men characters, has gone through millions of changes in the general history of Marvel's ongoing continuity. Mm-hmm. For that reason, I would like to provide you with basic info that hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed.
And I will be talking about the movies and the TV series that I grew up with, because some people are going to only having read certain comics with her in it and are going to disagree with some of the other information, and I don't even know what's current and accurate to the comics themselves, because there's just like so much stuff. So I'm going to avoid that complication for both you, Alison, and our listeners.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. So, due to the nature of Rogue's unique mutant powers, Rogue has had several different abilities over the decades. For everyone who doesn't know, Rogue possesses the mutant ability to absorb the psyche, so like personality, memories, anything that has to do with the mind, and abilities of another human being or members of some sapient alien races through skin contact. Basically meaning she can absorb memories, knowledge, talents, personality, physical abilities, whether superhuman or not, of the person she touches. She's basically like a human duplicator, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, the person she touches often loses those abilities and memories for exactly the amount of time that Rogue possesses them. So it could be short, it can be long. But this absorption usually leaves the victim very weak and can sometimes render that person completely unconscious. Their powers may also be temporarily weakened or removed in some cases, which is rare. But sadly, Rogue can't turn off her powers. I know some people might disagree with me at this point, so I'm going to quickly say I know that future Rogue, like when they jump or go into different Marvel universe and the multiverse planets of Earth, she can. But for the sake of being accurate for what's most common, Rogue, whenever she's been shown in like TV shows, movies, or other media, she's shown that she cannot turn her powers off.
Yeah.
It's constantly active, rendering her incapable of touching other people without the fear of like absorbing certain things from them. But again, evidence suggests that Rogue's inability to control her powers is psychological in nature. So she's stopping herself basically from being able to turn it off. She's given herself a clutch that shouldn't actually be there.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's kind of more... She's so afraid of her powers in a way that she just can't quite get over that fear in order to control them.
Yeah.
That's how it's been shown a couple times. You know, there's been different ways that they have explored that aspect of her. So that's interesting, though.
I know, right? And I'm just like, oh, like I probably would be the same way if I had a fear of touching anybody. It would probably be like, you know, when everyone's like, oh, give yourself a positive mantra, right? Like if you say positive things to yourself, those positive things are going to come true. Well, if you constantly think you can't touch people because you're always going to hurt them, then that's all that's going to happen. Right? She's thought about it so much that to her, that's the only option with her powers.
Yeah. You kind of manifest it into happening.
Yeah. By
giving it the power.
I know, it sucks.
Poor Rogue.
I love her. To continue, though, as a young woman, Rogue permanently absorbed the superhuman powers in the psyche of Carol Danvers, the original Miss Marvel.
Yes.
This provided her with superhuman strength, stamina, durability, reflexes, speed, and like a seventh sense. And she was able to repel bullets and fly, much like Miss Marvel could. So if anyone has watched the original X-Men TV series that came out, which love that. It was always in my head.
So good.
So good. But if anyone ever watched that or saw it, that was like her first time being on a TV screen and a TV show. And they showed her with those powers because of Carol Danvers. Outside of her own abilities of being able to absorb other mutant powers, Rogue has shown a fair knowledge of unarmed combat when in a position where she has to fight in situations where she can't use another person's power. So she's very well versed in that area. She also has apparently received a degree of training from Professor X to protect herself against any subtle telepathic attacks.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
Cool.
basically, overview of her powers, she can take other people's powers, duplicate them, basically harm or sometimes weaken the foe that she touches in the process. And she is able to fight really well with unarmed combat, to protect herself from telepathic attacks, and for a very long time, permanently had the powers of Miss Marvel. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's how I kind of, in the comics side of Rogue, first got into her, was when I first started getting into Miss Marvel, and then I kind of jumped from Miss Marvel into Rogue in comics.
Yeah, because the two of them have a complicated history.
Very complicated.
I know. Part of me wants them to do it in the Marvel universe in a way, because I think that would be so interesting, but it'd probably be complicated, so.
Yeah. I mean, welcome to adapting anything to do with comics. It's like, what? Age, section, storyline, version. Like,
what are we going to do?
Yeah.
How are we going to connect it? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a blast.
Although I would, because I love that costume, but it's so, like, basic. But that old classic Miss Marvel costume, I cosplayed as it,
yes.
which is just like a turtleneck, one-piece bathing suit, basically, with a big-ass lightning bolt on it, and a red sash.
And high...
And, like, knee-high boots. Yeah. It's a great costume. It's just very classic, like, superhero.
Yeah, very classic.
Which I love. I do like the new jumpsuit. It is cool and badass. But yeah, like, it's just something about those old school, like, basic ass superhero costumes. I love it.
It has like a place in a lot of people's hearts if you grew up with it for some reason. Mm-hmm. So before I dive into like really in-depth stuff with her in TV series and blah, 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 interesting facts I have, I would really like to tell everyone right now why I like her.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll be really important for why I chose certain topic points. To start, if you would have asked me why I liked Rogue when I was like 10 or 12 at the time, I think I believe my answer would have been like, oh, she's just really cool.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she totally is. Rogue is really, really cool. But I think it would come across as kind of like shallow surface level thoughts, which, you know, when admittedly, I think all young adolescent Fonda answers would be that way.
It looked cool.
Because I think...
that's the importance of character design. Yeah, it looks cool.
Especially because, like, as a kid at that time, I didn't really know how to express my feelings and emotions in more thoughtful ways. Like, my vocabulary was very minimum with how to say why I liked things. It was just like, I do. I just do. But now that I'm older, I know how I can express to people why Rogue is so important to me. Because to me, Rogue is the character who helped me navigate puberty and dealing with like complex emotions and learning that it's 1,000% okay to be angry and emotional at the world. Mm-hmm. Especially with the various X-Men cartoon series, but more so the ones when Rogue was portrayed as a teenager. I would see her lash out, be moody, or upset at other people or things. sometimes they were valid and some were her own problems that she was projecting or putting onto other people. And while I didn't know at the time, looking back, I can see exactly why I connected with her so fast, ignoring her mutant powers. I don't know how to connect with someone with mutant powers or the powers that Rogue possesses. So purely focusing on her as a person, I felt as though Rogue was able to be expressive and make mistakes at a time that I felt like I couldn't. Not to say that I was withheld from being emotional. In fact, far from it. I was a very much so emotional person. I would cry a lot. I had various crushes and I feel like my heart would break and I would get angry with like thoughts for no reason at things. But Rogue seemed to, like, at the time, navigate those spaces in a way that I felt very envious of. Because she would feel guilty about yelling at her friends, but had no problem doing it because she needed to, and those mistakes helped her grow. She was content with holding herself back and keeping specific things to herself, only till later she'd be opening up and feeling happy about opening up to her friends or to her teachers or even just to herself. She had complex emotions with her anger at the world and her power and things that she couldn't control. Basically, she was the angsty teenager I wanted to be. Like, that's the only way I can, as weird as it sounds. I think it's because I felt like I always had to be to put it in air quotes, a good daughter. Like, don't get me wrong, it was not perfect. And I'm 100% certain I was a difficult child, especially when I would constantly ask for Dairy Queen for dessert, like, every day. Like, I
would like more Dairy Queen, please.
More Dairy Queen. But I saw how, I guess, proud my parents were of me when I didn't go through what people would call a rebellious stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, compared to my brother, who had a very obvious one, and seeing what my parents were going through and how those difficult periods of time were for them as parents and for me as an older sister, I felt like I couldn't do the angsty teenager thing. And as much as sometimes I really just wanted to dye my hair dark red or leave the house without telling them, I didn't, because I wanted to be the good daughter, like the good kid in the house.
Yeah.
And so I lived through Rogue doing those things that I didn't.
Yeah.
But really wanted to.
Yeah, and, like, I get that. Like, my sister was the troublemaker in our family. I had an older sister, love her to bits, but she was definitely the one who kind of pushed all those boundaries before me. And so a lot of, like, my teen angst kind of came more from, like, less, like, trying to rebel and more like, you don't get me.
Oh, Alison.
Like, angsty poetry, and my parents did let me dye my hair. So I got to, like, cut my hair off. I got what is now jokingly known as the bisexual bob on the internet, where, like, it was just below my jawline. And it was, like, a straight cut along the bottom. So I cut my hair like that. I got it, like, pink on the ends or blue, and, like, I kind of had a little bit of freedom that way, but it wasn't rebellious because I kind of just learned from my sister to ask permission, and most of the time my parents were like, yeah, okay. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
You're like, wait, this is all I have to do?
Yeah, my sister pushed the boundaries and fought the battles, and then I just kind of snuck in afterwards and reaped the rewards.
Oh, parenting. Not envious of it. But yeah, like, I guess just to, like, all deep emotions aside, while I definitely have many, many, many characters whom I cherish for different reasons, Rogue has, and I feel like always will hold, a special place in my heart for helping me navigate my teens.
Yeah.
Even if that navigation was just me being very envious and vicariously living through a fictional character who had teenage angst.
Yeah. Just vicarious. Just, I get it. I wish I could be you, Rogue.
I wish, minus the power issue, I just wish I could.
Minus that whole thing.
Yeah. So, film and television.
Yeah.
She has been in a lot.
Sure has.
She's a popular character. She's very popular in the X-Men franchise, even if a lot of people might not know her very much right now. I guess to reiterate, I first fell in love with Rogue as a character when I saw her first appearance in the X-Men the Animated Series, which debuted in 1992. She was one of the main characters, and she had a wonderful voice actress, Lenore Zahn. In this series, she had her absorption powers. She already had Miss Marvel's powers. She had a copy of her psyche inside of her own. Basically, she was like what most people think of when they think of Rogue at the time. Now, I remember watching it late on Friday or Saturday nights when specific kids shows of the time, like YTV and whatnot, would air quote-unquote older adult TV series later in the night when they would thought that, you know, back then, they're like, kids go to bed by 7, right?
Yeah. I guess.
I guess. I was never able to watch all the episodes or catch the show as often as I would like due to its weird airing times back in elementary school, which really sucked. However, I really lucked out when the very first X-Men movie came out, and my dad took me to see it in theaters back in 2000. I was so freaking excited to see Rogue on the big screen as what I thought was a real person, right? Live action. Even more so, she was like a young teenager when she first appeared for the X-Men movies. Also, she was alongside Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, my other childhood crush and favorite male superhero, albeit because at the time he was Canadian, and when I found out that Wolverine is a Canadian character as a kid, it just sparked an interest in me. Thankfully, it grew into more, you know, not just a shallow reason, but anyways, love Wolverine.
Yeah, want to hear Fonda talk about Wolverine. We did a favorite male characters episode a while back. You can check that out.
Yeah, it's a bonus episode. You totally should. But anyways, it was such a fun movie. It was so fun and interesting. And Anna Paquin, anyone who doesn't know Anna Paquin, obviously she played Rogue, but she's also the main character for
True Blood.
True Blood, thank you. Yes. I know she's the main character in that one. She did a great job. And my nostalgic opinion as portraying Rogue on the big screen, love her so much. And while I was just like looking up to see other things about Anna Paquin, did you know that she's a New Zealand Canadian actress who was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba?
Yes.
I did.
I know a shockingly large amount about Anna Paquin. I love True Blood.
I didn't know that. I was so hyped when I found out. Just something about...
she's so cool. She's awesome.
I know, I like her a lot. Basically, I would say thanks to the first two movies in the X-Men trilogy, which is X-Men and then what's called X2. I found this like weird but deep connection with Rogue as a character. I cannot connect with her in many ways because I don't know, again, what it's like to have this fear of like human contact. But outside of wanting to be the angsty teen, when I was getting into like later elementary years and then like early high school, I remember feeling that I was always uncomfortable with intimacy with people my age. Like I had crushes and I liked people, but the idea of like kissing and holding hands at the time outside of giving hugs or just like couch cuddles for some reason was totally okay with me. But like what I thought was like serious kind of like scared me a bit and made me extremely nervous.
Yeah. So
like seeing how she acted and not being able to touch people for her own fear and different reasons at the time, I felt like I felt I understood at the time when I was young. So going into what really hit the nail on the head for me, Alison, like really hit the nail on the head for me to be like, oh my God, I love this character so much, was the X-Men Evolution animated series.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so good.
It's so good. It came out on November 4th in the 2000 and aired until October 25th, 2003. It's has a total of 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. I know later it got aired again on Disney XD in 2009, which is, I was more familiar with watching it in 2003. But also, thankfully, in Canada, our airing stuff is different than in the United States.
Yeah.
So I remember I was able to watch it more often, even though it stopped airing in 2003. I feel like I was able to still watch it, even without Disney XD. But that aside, in this incarnation, I guess, of like the X-Men franchise, many of the characters that are very popular were teenagers instead of adults. So just from that alone, you can imagine why I think a lot of people, myself included, were really, really interested in the characters at the time.
Yeah. Connected with them maybe a little bit more than they would have if they were adults.
Yeah, I think it was a great way to get kids interested in the X-Men again, like, because if you were to read the comics, like, yeah, it's cool they're adults, but at the same time, if TV has proven anything, if you really want to connect a franchise to a new audience, making them be kids again or teenagers for a newer generation really helps spark that interest in a franchise.
Yeah, it helps to kind of bring them in and kind of start them fresh too, because it is a really intimidating thing to try and jump into the middle of something that's been around for decades or however long certain characters have been around, right? It's tough.
And also they can modernize it to the time, right? Like, definitely early 2000 outfits they were wearing, which they weren't wearing 80s clothes.
I miss the 80s clothes, though.
I know.
I don't know.
It would have been, looking back on it, it would have been fun, but I don't think young Fonda would have been, like, as immersed in it. If they didn't wear clothes that I felt like I saw other people wear in my day-to-day.
Yeah.
But regardless, would love a reinterpretation of it again. In this series, Rogue is reimagined as a teenager, a very rebellious yet deeply insecure teenager with a wonderful goth punk aesthetic. Love her very much. Her powers make her very cynical and reclusive, but truthfully, she is consumed by the need for closeness and intimacy with other people. She was voiced by Megan Black.
Okay.
Using a heavy Southern American accent. As many people know, Rogue is portrayed as like the Southern belle. Love that for her very much.
Love that for her.
I like it. I think it suits the character very well.
Yeah, it seems to, for sure.
In the series, Rogue was actually adopted by Mystique and raised by Destiny, who is known as Irene Adler in the series. She initially joined the Brotherhood of Mutants, but left after finding out that they recruited her to be a potential weapon. In the series, Rogue develops a romantic interest in Cyclops for most of the series, and I hated that. Though her feelings for him faded soon after he and Jean Grey. Yeah, Jean Grey started dating. I have complex feelings about Jean Grey. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to ignore those.
Complex feelings are allowed.
Very complex. She's later seen as having an interest in Gambit, which is my preferred relationship for her.
Yes.
When they first meet in A Day of Reckoning in what's called Dark Horizon Part 1.
Ooh.
In it, she ends up kissing him to absorb his powers, but however, she did that while under Mesmero's hypnosis, so there's problematic reasons for me. As a kid, I didn't mind it, but looking back on it and remembering that and watching that part, I was like, oh, she was forced to kiss. There was no consent in it.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments like that.
Yeah.
Where, like, yeah, it's like at the time, it wasn't okay.
No.
But, like, it was so, like, accepted and just was, like, a thing. So I think it's almost, like, glossed over, and it's just like, let's just not focus on that until they actually want to make it a major part of the story, like they did in the Jessica Jones TV series, where they're just like, hey, let's explore the concept of consent and mind control.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's just kind of like, let's ignore it until we're going to actually focus on it, which is kind of a weird way to treat it.
Yeah, but it's better than just like being like, oh, here's a thing, and then never like addressing it. Like in the show, this particular thing didn't appear to affect Rogue in any way. Mm-hmm. But for me, looking back on it, I'm like, okay, I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
But to Alison's point, for the time, unfortunately, that was something that did happen a lot. It was a common trope, maybe I would say. I don't know what to call it. It's frequent enough that maybe I could call it a weird aspect of media in the times.
Yeah.
But that aside, to continue talking about her in the X-Men Evolution animated series. One of the reasons Rogue quietly, it was still very obvious, I would say, disliked Jean Grey, despite Jean's efforts to show her kindness and friendship, partly due to jealousy over Jean having a crush on Cyclops, blah, 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 was Jean represented everything that Rogue was not. She was popular, she was friendly, she had a power that did not keep her from having physical contact with other people. Though after helping Jean with her power problems in the episode called Power Surge, she admits to Cyclops when asked about her good deed towards her romantic rival that despite their differences, she knows Jean does care about her and that Jean would have done the same for her if she was in trouble. So I really liked this because as much as I'm not a personal fan of Jean Grey as a character, for my own reasons, I did like seeing that connection on screen. I thought it was very, very important. Kind of like as a reminder that like you might not understand why you dislike somebody as a kid, but still doing what's right and helping someone that has shown nothing but kindness to you, I think can like add a level of understanding between two people.
Yeah. And like you don't have to like every character or every person. You're allowed to just have like experiences with people where you're just like, you know what, like you rubbed me the wrong way, but it's not like you wish ill on any of them. You're not there like, oh, like Jean Grey just needs to die. It's like, no, I prefer less.
Yeah. One day I think I would like to discuss why I don't like her. But that's not what this is about.
And she's actually like, the more I've kind of read of like kind of more focusing on her stories, and my husband and I rewatched the 90s cartoon, and in it she's actually like way less annoying than I remember her being. So I'd almost like to do one on like her in that show. Like the Dark Phoenix episodes from that show are so good. And just the concept of her powers taking over her body, and like she's a very complex character, and I just think that I feel like she has been more mishandled.
I would agree.
And I feel like her character is not who I have the issue with. It is the way she has been written and the way that she has been handled. And I would really like to see her taken over by perhaps a more diverse comic book writer, which might help. Maybe give somebody a chance to explore her humanity a little bit more rather than just focusing on like her overwhelming powers.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I would love to do that because I agree. When I was younger, I just didn't like her. Like, that was my thing. I was just like, I don't like her. I just dislike. That was like all I would say when someone's like, oh, why don't you like her? I'm like, I just don't. I just dislike her character. But now, looking back on it and like reiterating what Alison said, it's not that I didn't like her blueprints to say, right? The blueprints of her as a character, I don't have a problem with. It's the stories I've seen, and in my personal perspective, how she's been portrayed, I'm not a big fan of.
It doesn't help that like everybody's in love with Jean Grey. And it's just being a girl that was never the one to have been in love, like to have somebody have been in love with me and like done that, right? Like it's, you get that kind of, you put yourself in the position of, I know girls like that, and you kind of get that like jealous girl mindset that we're so
I hate that mindset.
we're so like ingrained. It's so ingrained in our like upbringing to like bring other women down. And so like in seeing Cyclops and Wolverine, two male characters that like, well, I've never liked Cyclops, but like I love Wolverine, and you're kind of just like, why do they all love her? She's so lame.
I know.
And it's kind of almost like weirdly out of jealousy, even though they're all made up and fictional.
I know. I agree. Yeah. Young me was very envious of Wolverine's attraction to someone that I didn't understand. Whatever.
I get it.
Thank you. To come back, to end it off, the other appearance that Rogue has had is a different TV series called Wolverine and the X-Men. I haven't seen that one. I know there's people who like it. It just wasn't ever on TV for me. If that makes sense. Like, I could never catch it, so I could never just watch it. But I also think it got cut short. Like, it didn't go as long as they had planned for seasons, which is unfortunate, but that's just how the way things go. If you don't have a lot of sales or interest in something, it gets kiboshed. But there's been that on TV appearance she's had. And Anna Paquin, actually, though she was hired, and there are various cut scenes of her as Rogue for the X-Men Days of Future Past movie, sadly, they were never shown. If you watch the X-Men Days of Future Past, Rogue is... I didn't. She only appears very, very briefly at the very end of the movie with a cameo.
Okay.
Of her holding Bobby Drake's hand, which is Iceman.
Yeah.
But she's not in it. For the whole other thing, she's just not in it, and I was so sad.
Yeah. I watched the first new X-Men movie.
Okay.
And I didn't watch any more, because I didn't like it.
You know, I don't think Days of Future Past was perfect, but loved it to bits because Hugh Jackman was, I would say, the starring lead as Wolverine in that show.
Fair.
That being said, though, because there are various cutscenes, there is a director's cut that they labeled Days of Future Past, the Rogue Cut. Which shows the subplot that didn't end up happening for a handful of reasons. But it's really cool and I like it a lot. I'm just sad it wasn't on the final cut for the movie. So that's her in most of the film and television series. Again, that's where I'm much more familiar with Rogue as a character. I do own some comics. Like I own a handful of the Rogue and Gambit mini series for comics.
That's a good series.
I like it quite a bit. And I own some other like one-shot handoff ones where she's featured in it. But I find it very hard to keep up to date with the comics with Rogue just because they're constantly doing a lot with her character, which isn't a bad thing. I just don't know where to like begin and stop with it. So yeah, they haven't quite figured it out yet. Nope. And that's whatever. I'm okay with it. I live in my own Rogue world, which is hoping she's in the movies in the future. Or I would love if they could do like a Rogue TV series like they did with Jessica Jones.
That'd be cool.
I would love that so much.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
It'd be dope. Speaking of things that would be cool, I want to share with you interesting facts.
Yes!
Interesting facts.
Interesting facts.
Da-na-na-na. So, Rogue's villainous side, which was retconned later in the comics, partially because of her gullible and trusting nature when it came to Mystique's teachings. The actual comics that featured Rogue as a villain told a different tale, as she was one of the most vicious and wicked foes of the X-Men. The powers that she stole from Miss Marvel made her the match for the whole team. Basically, she could fight all of the X-Men with Miss Marvel's powers.
Yeah, because Miss Marvel's a badass.
She totally is. The story of how Rogue became good is actually something that can't be reprinted. Which is likely why the tale of her redemption is pretty much a retcon, and they just started her out as always being good.
Fun.
I know. I hate it so much.
Why is it not available? Is it something to do with rights, or?
There were various characters featured in it that they don't have the rights for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that.
Which is both the downside, but also turned into the really shitty side, where now Marvel, the reason they don't have any new characters is because they don't give anybody creative rights.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to convince any creators to make new characters because Marvel fucks people over so hard on that. Well, DC does too. Yeah.
Comic book. But, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but I get it. I get it.
Rogue is actually one of the members of the X-Men who would willingly take what's called the cure for her mutant condition. So long as it could remove her powers, Rogue would take the cure. This was a prominent storyline in the X-Men cartoon and in the movies, with her refusing to use the treatment in the former and taking it in the later, even though sadly the cure never really lasts. It's not a thing that continues for her. Rogue always at one point, whether it's because of her choice or other reasons, has her powers return or come back to her. Another interesting fact is no matter if it's in the comics, the TV series, video games, or X-Men movies, Rogue is always portrayed with what used to be called a Dixie accent, but is more widely known as a Southern accent. I tried to look into the different reasoning between like a Dixie accent and a Southern accent, but all the research I'm able to find for free. I'm curious if it's like something that's written in like different journals or articles for academic reasons, but anytime you look up a Dixie accent, it like redirects you to the Southern American accent.
Weird.
Yeah, I know. If anyone does know, please, I would love to know, because I don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Within the Marvel multiverse, the X-Men Evolution universe has its own designation. It's designated Earth 11052, which I love that they're like, nope, it's canon. It is a multiverse. It has its own Earth version, which just like keeps a special place in my heart, because I would hate for them to be like, nope, it's just like a one-off thing that they're not acknowledging. So I'm glad that they do have it as a thing.
I mean, once you establish a multiverse, why not take advantage of it?
Right? And it was so popular.
Yeah.
So they had to. The last cool fact I would love to tell you is about the Rogue cut, specifically for the X-Men Days of Future Past. So it was a subplot in the alternate version of the X-Men for Days of Future Past, which involves Xavier, Magneto, and Bobby going on a mission to rescue Rogue after Kitty Pryde is stabbed by Wolverine during his weird... Because, like, he gets mind transferred to, like, the past. And because he's doing stuff, he accidentally stabs Kitty Pryde and causes a lot of damage to her. So they had to go and rescue her so Rogue could take over Kitty's role in sending Logan back to the past, while Kitty rests due to the strain from maintaining what's called the temporal link. And although Xavier believed that Rogue was dead, Bobby reveals that she had been captured by the Sentinels, the human agents, and was being experimented on in Cerebro, which is the only location where Xavier's mind can't reach. So they try... In Cerebro, they want to, like, duplicate her powers and other things and whatnot, try to give it to the Sentinels. And in the cut...
Because that would be super handy for giant robots that are fighting mutants.
Yeah. Who already have the capabilities of Mystique's weird ability to, like, adjust to things. So they would be OP for sure. In informing Xavier about that, Bobby also mentions that he and other mutants have already tried to rescue her, but the old Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, the mansion that it was in is, like, way too heavily guarded. tons of reasons why it didn't work. But Xavier's guidance and Magneto go with Bobby, and in the cut, they're managed to penetrate the mansion and rescue her, but Bobby is killed along the way!
No!
I know!
I love
Bobby is really good in the movies. I liked him a lot. He's probably, like, the only other person that I had a conflict with, because I'm like, oh, I want Rogue to be with Gambit, but Bobby's really good! He's a wholesome boy! At least in the X-Men trilogy. But yeah, so he gets killed, but Xavier and Magneto manage to escape with Rogue. And when she arrives to the hideout, she absorbs Kitty's powers, and she takes over the role of holding Wolverine's mind in the past. And I guess in the cut, there's like a suggestion that Logan is aware of the switch, because he appears to feel Rogue's presence, which I love a lot, because I was a big fan of their like weird father-daughter found family relationship in the trilogy. So I would have really liked to see that.
That would have been super cool.
I know. Heartbroken. It never happened. But those are all my interesting, cool facts.
Nice.
That's her in film and television. That's why I love her. And she has a complicated comic book history, and I love her a lot. And I hate how sometimes writers do her dirty.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. No,
but that's
awesome.
with anybody. That's with anybody. With any comic book. So yeah. Anyways, I love her very, very much, Alison.
Yeah.
Before we end off the show, can you tell me what you're excited about right now?
Yeah, I actually, just before we recorded, I just got back from buying a new leather jacket. My old one died after almost 10 years of service.
Oh,
My
no.
favorite red leather jacket officially has too many holes in it for me to keep wearing.
Oh,
but
no.
I've added it to my stock of like random scraps for like cosplay stuff. So if I need like a jacket pattern, I can cut it apart, make a jacket pattern, or I can use the leather, do a bunch of cool stuff like that. And so I just went and bought a new one. It was expensive, but it's so nice and gray, and I love it.
Ooh.
I am a firm believer. I am a firm believer in ethically sourced leather, because it lasts so much longer than fake leather. When you get it from like the good locations, it's from hide that would have just been thrown out or gone to waste. So, and it lasts. I mean, yeah, I had a jacket for 10 years. No other jacket I own of any other material has ever lasted that long. And I love it so much. And it's so pretty, and it's gray, and it fits me so nice. And it makes me look so pretty.
I agree. I'm a big fan of anything ethically sourced.
Yeah.
Nice. Good for you. I can't wait to see you in it. I can't wait to see you rock it. You're gonna look...
I also got a pair of overalls.
Oh, I love overalls.
Yeah. They're made of like a kind of stretchy material, but it looks almost like jean, but it's stretchy, so it feels like I'm wearing sweatpants, but it doesn't look like I'm wearing sweatpants.
Oh, that's the bonus.
So, the important part.
It is. Love that for you.
You can find us wherever podcasts can be found. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow us on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram at Wench Bench Pod. And if you want to reach out, you can send us an email at wenchbenchpod@gmail.com. All of the art for the Wench Bench was designed by the wonderful Tessa Joyce Riecken. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at Werevile. Thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.
Bye. Sorry, I just had to do it again.